here. Really excited to be a part of Virginia Tech. I grew up in a small town, about 3 hours south of here, and so being near to Virginia Tech, I remember, as Coach Franklin said in his first press conference, of the days of Virginia Tech kicking butt and taking names, and really excited to get that going here again. I couldn't be more honored to be on Coach Franklin's staff. Obviously, I got an opportunity to be with him for the past 6 years at Penn State, and so to have the opportunity to come here and be a part of this is really special to me. I'm just looking forward to getting going. So really excited about our offensive staff we built, about our team that we have. Right now, they're working their tails off, getting ready for winter workouts and spring ball and all that, but they're taking it day by day. So excited to be a part of what's going on here.
If you have a question, please identify yourself and your outlet. Start with Andy and then Dane.
Hi, Ty. Andy Bitter from Tech Sideline. James Franklin was up here before you. He said that you both sort of have a similar vision for what you want for the offense. What is that vision? What do you plan to do offensively here?
Yeah. Andy, nice to meet you. I appreciate y'all saying your names, too. I'm going to try to get to know everybody as we get going. But so big thing for us is, the game's about explosive plays and limiting turnovers, right? And everybody says that. Well, how are you going to do that? And I think the first thing starts with being quarterback friendly and having him in mind with every decision that we make. And then the next piece of it is the offensive line. Those are the two positions that everyone on an offense depends on. And so building it around those two positions and within the whole offense, it's what do our players do well? I think a lot of times people focus on this is our system or my system, and more it's about the vision of how you can help your players execute. So we will do things on offense that put our players in the best position to be successful. We have our core fundamental beliefs with our different zone schemes or gap schemes and all those things, but all that is secondary to who you have, how you teach them, and how you coach them to do it. But our vision is, like, I know there's some things in football fundamentally to be true. It's a lot easier to score points when you're explosive, all right? And the most explosive thing you can do is push the ball vertically down the field. But you got to earn the right to do that through the run game, through being really efficient in your quick game, protecting the quarterback, establishing the toughness and foundational core principles of an offense before you get to all those things. But the vision is to be explosive, tough, all right, and to limit our turnovers and do what our players do best.
Ty, Damian Sordelet with Roanoke Times. You mentioned quarterback. You got a chance for 6 games with Ethan last year to see what he could do in the offense, along with Danny as well. How much does that help that you have someone who started against Iowa, Ohio State, Indiana, rattle off wins after that to build this offense around?
Yeah, I think the first thing is, obviously, I'll start with Danny, having the continuity with him of knowing how he's going to coach our quarterbacks, how he's going to get those guys to prepare and compete. And then obviously, with having a familiarity with Gronk and seeing him at the highest stage, I know he's going to come in and compete. Obviously we got a lot of talented quarterbacks on the roster. We brought in multiple guys, and so having a familiarity with Gronk is really important. And seeing how he's been exposed to some of the high-pressure situations that we were in last year and how he responded to that. But also knowing the type of competitor and learner and teammate that he is more important than any of that as well. But it's a huge advantage for us. And with all those guys, I mean, you look at some of the guys we brought in, we have familiarity with those guys as well. And then obviously the guys on the current Virginia Tech roster, I don't know them as well, but that's what I'm working to get to do. Like, that was my first task when I got here that I set for myself. I tried to sit down as many of the players on the Tech roster as I could to start building the relationships with those guys. And so working on that day to day, I know one of the things about relationships, it takes time. And so I'm willing to put in the time to build those with those guys. And so I think, obviously I've leaned on our staff that stayed with us, like Fontel Mines and Matt Moore and Coach Ferg in the weight room, our team chaplain, Brother Dave, just Brent Pry, obviously, to help bridge some of those gaps. But everybody's got a fresh start and clean slate with me. Like, I want to see what guys can do and who they are and who they will be.
David, too.
Ty, David Teal with the Virginian Pilot. What will the transition be like for you going from a co-OC to the OC, and all the while being in a new program as well?
Yeah, I think, obviously there's transition when you change job titles, but I think one of the great things that working for Coach Franklin in the past 6 years is he's empowered us as coaches. Like last year I got to call it in the spring game, or, on the back half of the 23 season, got to call some games there, obviously, and then having the opportunity to call it at a former school before Penn State as well. The logos change, but the work doesn't. But I think Coach does a great job of preparing you for these roles and working with you on these things. So it hasn't been a tough transition from the standpoint of the job. It's about the people, getting to know the people here, just like me getting to know you guys, like getting to know our players, getting to know the guys that we brought in, and figure out what's going to be best for Virginia Tech. But the transition has been easy from the standpoint of job title. I got a really good group around me. It's a group effort. We were fortunate. We hired some guys with some really, really good resumes on the offensive staff. You look at a guy like Warren Ruggiero, who's been a coordinator for 33 years. You look at a guy like Danny Rocco, who, was the head coach at VMI but been at Delaware, Richmond, Liberty. That's a huge advantage for me. And I lean on those guys. I'm a no ego guy from the standpoint of, I'm not one of these guys that think I know everything. A lot of people in football are that way. I'm not. I have things that I believe in, but I just want to find the best way for Virginia Tech and for Coach Franklin and for our offense and for our kids. And so having guys like that in the room, you look at Matt Moore, obviously has had an unbelievable career coaching the offensive line, has been a coordinator, right? You look at Norval McKenzie, he's been with Coach Franklin when he was at Vandy for a short time. So, like, we got a ton of experience in the room that I've been able to surround myself with to help with that transition of those things. And to help with what's best for all of us. Like, I'm not worried about what's best for Ty Howle or stats or, like, I'm worried about what's best for our team. And so to have a lot of experience in that room is a huge advantage. And obviously leaning on Coach Franklin as well. I've been with him for 6 years. And so me and him have always had great dialogue back and forth about how we see the game. And I've learned a ton from him, over that course of time period and continue to do so. So the transition's been fairly easy. I'm really excited. I got my wife and kids moving down tomorrow, so excited about that one. I got twin boys that are 6, so they'll be starting school here in Blacksburg, and we've heard nothing but great things about the education system here, and so excited to get them down here. That's probably one of the biggest transitions I'll make for right now. But so it's been smooth. I mean, the community has been unbelievable to me so far. It's nice being back down in the South a little bit. My dad was a high school coach for 30 years, so you guys that are covering practice and stuff, when you're around, you'll probably see him and a couple of his cronies around watching practice. They'll just be watching the offensive line. That's what they do. They watch the offensive line and, critique us. So I'm fortunate to have that. That's been a good transition as well. So.
Ryan Castle, second row.
Good morning, Coach. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing great. My name is Ryan Castle. I'm with Sons of Saturday. A lot of new players on this roster coming from a number of different places. How does that impact how you attack spring practices and trying to get this offense to really gel together?
Absolutely. It's a huge impact. So, whenever you're building a team, that's what it's about. It's about building a team. It's not about building a player or building one position group. It's about building the best team. And so when you're doing that, the first thing you got to start with culture. And that's what we've spent a lot of time on. Obviously we've been out on the road recruiting. We've been able to have, I think, 2 position meetings now. And the first thing we did in a unit meeting is to talk about it. Talk about our core values. Talk about what we're going to build the foundations of this team on. And obviously echoing the message with Coach Franklin. But that is the biggest thing you got to attack from way before you get into the X's and O's. It's how we can get these guys to help each other, to coach each other, to be around each other. You know, when the coaches aren't around, how are they interacting? Are they supporting one another? And so we spent a lot of time focusing on that. We had a team event that we would do, you know, go out and get to know each other. You know, obviously we've been, you know, trying to spend as much time around these guys in the building, cross ball, offense, defense. Like that's the first thing, you know, before getting into the X's and O's. And then obviously as you do that, you know, you've got a lot of guys who hadn't necessarily been in the system, or you know, been with you. You got guys who coming in and weren't in the same schemes, and so you're gonna obviously feed those in chunks to them. I'm a big believer in teaching theory of chunking. Like, hey, here's a section, not just give them, here's everything we got, right? Here's any possibility. Like, no, let's start with the basics. Let's start with the foundations, and learn that, and then we can move on. And so, like, that's been the piece from a teaching and X's and O's standpoint that we've been going through with these guys. But we've been spending a lot of time on culture, getting these guys bought into Coach Franklin's vision, but also, you know, around each other, enjoying each other as teammates. Like, that's the step, because, you know, it takes all 11 on offensive football play. You know, you got one guy who goes wrong, a catastrophe can happen. And so we got to get those guys coordinated and moving in sync with one another.
Last one, Thomas.
Hi, Coach. Thomas Hughes, Virginia Tech on SI. Damien
Thomas.
mentioned Ethan Grunkemeyer earlier. What was the process sort of getting him to commit to Virginia Tech football?
Yeah, I think, you know, obviously with this whole transfer portal, it was new to me, I'll be honest. I've never taken a tight end out of the transfer portal when I was the tight ends coach at Penn State. And so, you know, when he decided to go in and do that, you know, we had a lot of conversations about what it would look like here for him from the standpoint of what he can expect from us. You know, obviously I'd been around him, Danny had been around him, Coach Franklin had been around him for a long time. So the people are the same, but the logo's different, the location's different. Obviously, some things will change on how we did some things there versus here. It's a different place, different team, different players on the offense, different schemes, you know. So talking through some of those things with him, because the relationships were there. So once we felt good about that, you know, he decided to join us and come to Virginia Tech. So it wasn't a long, drawn-out process or anything like that. It was more of a making sure both sides are in agreement and in a good place, you know, and that it would benefit both parties for him to decide to come to Virginia Tech.
Thank you, Coach Howle.
Yep. Thank you, guys. I look forward to meeting you guys more and working with y'all. All right, take care.